Large corporations were probably one of the most important innovations of the 20th century and enabled us to achieve the kind of economic development we had over the course of that century. But governance of these large stockholder-held corporations has always been a challenge. Well, once managers were separated from owners, since that time, we have struggled with how to get governance correct.
There was a theory at the turn of the last century that the stakeholders that were most important lined up in a certain order. The labor that went into the business being first, the customers being second, the community being third, and last, the investors. And so it was decided to create boards of directors that were made up of investors, shareholders, so that because they were the last to benefit, they would make sure that there was a going concern. And that was what governance was about. Fill everybody's bucket, then the investors get their money back, and you have something solid for the long term. Somewhere in the 1970s, we inverted the process. We said that it was the stockholder who was the first in line, not last in line. And having governance structures made up of people who are first in line to benefit led to a lot of the abuses that we've seen time and again, not just once, but many times in the past 50 or so years. It's my hope that the way that women think, the way that they approach things, will be of benefit to the 21st century in terms of, yet again, trying to strengthen the governance of institutions.
The environment has changed. There's more regulation. It's a very volatile and uncertain environment. And the board plays an important role in keeping our company purpose-centered, centered on that purpose of touching and improving lives, and also connecting us to the outside world so we can successfully deliver shareholder value.
There's two factors that I think of in terms of good corporate governance. The first is transparency. I think it is critically important that there be total transparency between management and the board, between the board and shareholders, and between the company and the communities in which we operate. I also think another important principle is to make sure that we are selecting our board members very carefully. It's about chemistry, it's about a breadth of experiences that collectively can add value to the decisions of the company, and it's ensuring that the collection of members of our board can help us to reflect good governance practices.
So in terms of what a board must do in order to effectively exercise its responsibilities in corporate governance, it's important, and among the items that we discuss as a panel, it's important to really assess at a granular level what those risks are in emerging markets, understand what the business practices are, how the business necessarily functions in order to have its growth potentials reached in those markets, and how to effectively disseminate policies, procedures, and most importantly, a corporate culture of compliance to the thousands or tens of thousands, or in some cases hundreds of thousands of employees that the company may have across the world, many of which are concentrated in emerging markets.
Well, I think the challenge for directors is to partner with the management of an organization to shape an appropriate sense of direction for the company that's highly aspirational, but also approachable. And I look at that as management's responsibility. And then I look at directors as having the challenge of making sure that management is reaching high enough and dreaming deep enough.
The mission of a company is something that remains relatively constant for a very, very long period of time. And so in that respect, I think, first of all, when directors are recruited to the board, they are recruited with the belief in that mission, and they are, in the course of their tenure, going to add refinements, make adjustments as the context changes, as the capabilities change and the demands, but it rarely a radical change. So it's much more of one being at the table, being informed about where the company is and where it's going.
And often we don't spend enough time thinking about the long term. But for many corporations that we've been talking about at this Global Institute, they are changing how they see themselves because of the trends of many companies that are diversifying from markets in the United States and the West to markets in the East to developing countries. So they are reimagining themselves, and corporations' boards are the place where they should be thinking creatively with management and with the CEO about how the corporation could look in the long term.
Good corporate governance is critical to the functioning of a modern society, and having directors who aren't willing to ask the tough questions, who are willing to shake up the sort of social coziness of the boardroom is critically important. In my own experience, I've seen women are often more willing to do that than men. Corporate boards have been something of an old boys club, and that was one of the problems. So I think having informed, educated, intelligent, and courageous women in the boardroom willing to ask the tough questions is critical to the future of large corporations.
So from a management perspective, I'm very much in the talent business, and it's all talent that is pretty senior, where there's a lot of intellectual capital. So the name of the game is to select the right people, get them to believe in a common vision, and then collaborate at making it happen and executing it. So it's all about building a team of people that are joined together around a mission where they really want to make a difference and they want to do it together. From a governance perspective, I think that the key is to be open, to be transparent, and to always be ready to have the courage to do the right thing.